Government secrets leak out, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, it should be noted, Lee Camp, that I've been working on a live show in a little city called Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And they're asking, I thought we might do a meet and greet after the show, right? Or no?
Yeah, I'm going to be in a full body condom, but yeah.
So kind of a hazmat meet and greet, or
I could do a meet and greet. It'll all be fist bumps though. I'm not dishing out hugs.
I'm not touching anybody. Well, we'll discuss this off camera.
How about we're in a soundproof booth and they can just walk by and wave,
and we throw our feces at the window like chimpanzees in the zoo.
Yeah, yeah. So why did you bring up the meet and greet? You're more excited. I'm more excited for the show.
Well, and again, this probably is one of these things we should just have a phone call about. But they wanted to move with the meet and greet. They wanted to move the start time up, and I was like, we wanted to do 4, but they're like, well, if you meet and greet, it should be 3, and I was like,
and you thought this would be a perfect government secret. You know, I figured out this is Graham's multitasking. It was like, oh, I can do the show and I can figure out all these logistics.
Yeah, why do we got to do a separate call for where can't we just iron it all out? Like, you know, we could exchange recipes, or where's a good place to get your toaster oven cleaned, or whatever.
I wanted to ask you about a rash on my upper thigh. We can do that now.
Hey guys, support the show by sending Lee some rash cream, and we're gonna have government secrets rash cream. I think that's gonna be one of our.
There you go. There's the merch right there. Yeah,
it goes right with the some of the
because we're rational. It'll say that on the side of the can.
Oh, I'm out. I can't.
No, you don't want to. No. I think that would sell like crazy.
It would. I just wouldn't want to be a part of it. I just couldn't.
Welcome to my world since we started the show.
There's a lot of good ideas that one of us just doesn't want to be a part of. That's really, that's basically how this show works.
Yep.
One guy goes, "We could do this." The other guy goes, "Yeah, but
I got a thing. I gotta do.
I
got a toaster oven that needs fixing."
Welcome to Government Secrets, episode 48.
We know that after doing 247s. Now,
I thought we were on doing a good thing by not saying the number, but you really want to play with fire every week. Every week you want to just dive right in.
47C or whatever we'll call this one. Yeah, I'm very confident this is 48.
And this is an exciting one because it's been a while since we talked about an assassination. So very exciting.
Oh, that's one of our favorite Gov Seeks is an assassination plot. And we just had one this past week.
Right. So we're not gonna really get into what just happened in Haiti because it doesn't seem that anyone seems to fucking know what just happened in Haiti. Moise was not a good president and was clinging to power, and he was largely a U.S. puppet president. I mean, it's not like the Biden administration, the Trump administration disliked him, so it seems unlikely that the U.S. would have supported this. And it seems like most of the mercenaries, there were 2 Haitian Americans, but it seems like most of the mercenaries were like Colombian or something. So who knows what'll come out, what'll be revealed. And, for those who don't know, the president of Haiti was shot in his bedroom by like 26 people. Mercenaries came in vans and shot him and his wife. His wife has survived so far, her wounds. But I figured the good government secret on this topic would be some of the past events in Haiti, specifically their a little bit of their origin story, and then also the U.S. not just U.S. backed, but basically U.S. perpetrated coup against Jean-Bertrand Aristide in 2004. So,
oh, great. This is gonna
let's
be
lick my fingers. Get into this.
This is classic. Before you get into the details, let me, and I don't know much about, I read a little bit about it, but let me just guess. There was a guy that was trying to make his country better and help his people, and the CIA and the US government came in and got him out of there. Am I close?
That's about it. Yeah.
How did I know that?
Yeah.
How did I know that?
Pretty much it. And wasn't doing everything the US wanted. I haven't studied Aristide enough to know like whether he was this like amazing leader or anything, but he wasn't enough in bed with our oligarchy. And so that means he needs to be taken out.
Yep. If you don't take the rings off when you give the oligarchy a hand job, they'll put one between the eyes. That's what they'll do.
Let's see. I'm just checking what we got here in the slides department.
Government secret slide department. This is me stalling while Lee Camp tries to find something to put on screen. Episode 48.
Well,
the
actually,
toaster oven.
We're going to wait to put something on screen for the moment. So sorry for the excitement. This is kind of three. This is kind of three government secrets about Haiti. So
right.
So
Haiti government secret hat trick.
So Haiti was, it was obviously occupied, colonial, slave state basically, and then there was a slave rebellion which kicked France out of the country, kicked the white slave owners out of the country, which you can imagine did not go over well amongst the whites, amongst both, early American landowners were nervous it might catch on, this idea that slaves could have their freedom. But so they insisted that Haiti pay for all the money and income that France lost when the slaves threw their masters out of Haiti.
Who insisted?
France, but with the coordination of, Europe and the United Nations, and the United States. The United Nations didn't exist then, but so there was an 1825 agreement where basically France held a gun to their head and said, we're going to keep attacking you unless you sign an agreement saying you're going to pay us for your freedom. You're going to pay us what we lost for not owning you. I mean, honestly, like it's tough to even wrap your mind around such an agreement. You have escaped my kidnapping of you, therefore pay me.
Only oligarch colonialists can come up with that logic. They're the only people in the history of the human race that can go, hey, you got a lot of nerve saying you don't want to be owned as a human being, so you're going to have to pay. You don't just get to do that.
White male privilege was on a whole other level then. It was on
it's astounding.
Listen, we as white men, have a right to own you. I don't understand what you don't understand. Where are we miscommunicating here? I am white man. And you are my property. So what are we missing? It's just something. It's just a misunderstanding. There's something we're missing between us.
I don't know where you have the audacity to think that land you were born on is yours. We're just going to come in and take it, and then make you slaves to work your land, but we get all the profits. And I don't. And you're copping an attitude with me. I'm just beside myself. So you need to write us a check.
See, I hear your argument that you were like born here, or that we enslaved you and brought you here, and that you deserve this land. I hear that, but then I always come back to, and I feel like you're not hearing this point from me. I always come back to my skin color. Like, have you seen it? Because I don't know if you like seen it, like really taken it in.
Yeah,
because that's what I feel like we're missing here in this discussion.
Yeah, and I'm evil. So I get to just take shit. So I think we need to write up a document. That's the other thing. They always have the white, and then.
Well, yeah, no, there's always some document, but you notice with the documents that give white people something, they stick it to the letter for hundreds of years. They're like, look at this. Whereas when it's when it's a document that gave the indigenous like their land or like a area of the United States, they didn't give a shit. They used it as toilet paper the moment they left the room.
It is this insane psychosis that like, I'm going to literally put a gun to your head. We did this when we talked about the bayonet constitution in Hawaii and a dozen other episodes we've done where they put a gun to someone's head, force them to write this document that's bullshit, that's illegal. And then they go, this is the law. And then they don't uphold these other ones. Like, what is the psychosis like of that, of why do you need, I mean, it's one thing to just be pure evil and go, I'm going to kill you and take your land. I don't give a shit what you think. Okay, but at least you're being straightforward in your evil colonialism versus, hey, you sign this document. I mean, this is like, I don't understand why they need the document so badly. Like, what is the document to them that they got to go through all this conniving and murder and coup and all this shit to say, and then you signed it. Like,
yeah, it's amazing. And like the pirates back then during a certain period of time, they had to document from England saying they could raid whatever they wanted. And so they just, they jump on a ship, steal everything, kill some people, and then hold up a little piece of paper that's like, the Queen of England said I could.
So why didn't somebody just write, oh, here, fuck you. Here's my document. We're just going to start murdering you. We got a piece of, like, why can't anyone just write up a piece of paper saying, oh, we've got this signed. It's done. And just go the other way.
Because it wasn't signed by the individual that has God's blood pulsing through them, the monarchy.
Oh God, take the monarchy out, like please. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about. Anyway, go ahead.
So the Haiti indemnity controversy involved an 1825 agreement between Haiti and France that included France demanding 150 million franc indemnity to be paid by Haiti in claims over property, including Haitian slaves that were lost through the Haitian Revolution in return for diplomatic recognition. Basically, we'll acknowledge your nation and we'll stop fucking shooting at you and killing you if you sign this payment for us. The payment was later reduced to 90 million francs in 1838, comparable to $21 billion in 2004. French warships in 1825, 21 years after Haiti's declaration of independence in 1804. Sorry, I missed a sentence. France's demand of payments in exchange for recognizing Haiti's independence was delivered to the country by several French warships in 1825, 21 years after Haiti's declaration of independence in 1804. Though France received its last indemnity payment, so they paid it in 1893, the government of the United States funded the acquisition of Haiti's treasury in 1911 in order to receive the interest payments related to the indemnity. So they were still paying interest, and the United States basically acquired it. So it took until, wait for it, 1947, 122 years for Haiti to finally pay off all the associated interest to the, wait for it, National City Bank of New York, wait for it, now Citibank. They paid off the entity that became Citibank for getting free from their French captors.
For 100 and some years.
Yeah, 122 years.
That is the biggest long con I think I've ever heard of in my life. And let us all take a moment to see the hilarious irony, too, that while Citibank was making a profit off of this scam of Haitian freedom that the French did, they somehow, American banks, weaseled their way into France and Haiti's corrupt deal to make hey, let me help you out here. And
We'll help you pay that interest, and you'll just pay it back to us. We'll have interest on the interest. We'll put some interest on the interest, and then you'll owe interest in our interest on the interest, and so you'll be paying that for another 170 years,
which is compounded daily. That's the same bank that then picked Obama's cabinet. Like, that is amazing to me.
Yeah, still going.
Oh God.
I mean, yeah, and this is one of the, like, you know, this country is built on the backs of slaves, of indigenous that were massacred.
I thought you were going to say hardworking Americans.
Of all those things, but this is kind of the most direct, like, you can actually see, like, no, they were paying to no longer be slaves. They had to pay France and the United States.
Lee, I'm going to come steal your land, your property, make you work for me, okay, and treat you like a slave because you're less than human. And then when you finally get your freedom, you're going to pay me interest, and your great-great-great-grandchildren are going to be paying me this interest.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And could you imagine if the skin color roles were reversed?
Oh,
if a white guy were kidnapped, it'd be like Elizabeth Smart when we found out where she was and freed her, owing that maniac money for the next 50 years.
Yeah.
Like, well, we found Elizabeth. She's free now, but of course she has to pay that guy because he's lost a lot of a lot of worth. He's lost because she got away.
Hey, that guy's out money too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The people that abducted the Lindbergh baby, they're out money too. I mean, they put money out there. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's going out of pocket a little bit here. So we need to, the Lindbergh family is going to be paying interest until the year, 2060? Would that happen?
Yeah. The baby is going to pay it. So that's unbelievable. So that's a little secret that our government doesn't really like to talk about. That's number one. So,
they don't talk about this.
Yeah, you also like our mainstream media has covered the Moise assassination a lot. Like, it was on CNN and everything. And I didn't watch really how they covered it, but I can guarantee you they weren't talking about this.
I guarantee you.
They weren't talking much about if at all, about the fucking U.S. coup of Aristide that I'm about to get into. Like, all of the background that it's left out in our mainstream media is just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's weird. You didn't think Vice President Kamala Harris would be talking about all this crime. And basically what should be happening is the French government should be giving the Haitian people billions of dollars. They should come in. French companies should build their infrastructure and not own a thing. Yep. We're going to build it. We don't own anything. This is all for the Haitian people. We're going to
put up billboards that say, sorry, we owned you. Sorry, we stole you and made you our property.
And made you pay interest for 140 years. Like, it should be like literally the French government and every French corporation that is every French citizen should be goddamn spending their money, giving the Haitians billion, and Haiti within a matter of years could be lifted out of poverty. Everyone's got a job. They've got an amazing infrastructure in schools and everything. And this is a small token for the 150 years of screwing you over socially, slavery, stealing your land, and financially is what should be happening, but that's not happening. Yeah,
I say that sounds about right. I don't really see it like happening like this week, but maybe next week.
But just give us. I mean, we gotta win the midterms, and then.
Then we're gonna make it right. We're gonna make it all right.
We gotta win 2024, but after that, then we're gonna really the 26th midterm. But then after that,
but then the Supreme Court. So yeah,
hold off.
Listen, just hold off for the next 150 years because of the Supreme Court, and then we're gonna do it. We're gonna give you education and healthcare.
Oh God. Oh, all right. So that's the French can suck it section of this government secret, right?
Yes, let's get into the America can suck it.
America can suck it. America can suck it.
So I'm not there's a lot with Haiti's history, obviously, but I'm just going to get into the kind of this one particular coup against Aristide. So, for those thinking, well, you missed, A, B, and C. Yes, I'm aware of that. We're going to just focus on one. But so Haiti was, since its freedom, quote unquote, it was still kind of owned by rulers and Western interests and like colonial interests and stuff in many ways, or pressured, or, there was the first time there was some form of democracy in Haiti was 1990, or at least democracy that they actually had some control over. So Aristide wins in 1990, the Haitian general election, with 67% of the vote. As a priest, he taught liberation theology, and as a president, he attempted to normalize Afro-Creole culture, which was their kind of native culture, rather than the colonial bullshit. Aristide was only briefly president, though, in 1990. He held on to it until a September 1991 military coup. The coup regime, however, collapsed, and Aristide became president again in 1994 till 1996. And then again from 2001 to 2004. So 2004 is when the U.S., with the help of some others, but the U.S. basically goes in, kidnaps Aristide, puts him on a plane, and I'm going to get into the details in a minute, but puts him on a plane and flies him to fucking Africa and just drops him in the middle of Africa and announces on like your nightly news, like Bush does and the Bush administration, that Aristide stepped down and flew to Africa. Like, it's fucking unbelievable. And even where you have people mention this, they'll say like, oh, a coup happened in 2004. And, or U.S., maybe they'll say, if they're really pushing it, they'll say U.S.-backed coup. It's like, this was some like U.S. fucking going in and fucking grabbing him and putting him on a plane. Like, it's fucking amazing. So this was back, this is 2004. So this is back when Democracy Now! Was doing a much better job and, was not going full Russiagate or whatever. And so they did a great job on this. They're one of the only sources that did. This is earlier internet, so there weren't as many independent journalists as well. So it's, thank goodness that they were doing it at least. But so this is from the Democracy Now! Article.
Yeah. Somebody said it wasn't a coup; it was a freedom flight.
Exactly. So this is from Democracy Now! Multiple sources just spoke with Haitian President Jean-Bertrand Aristide, told Democracy Now! That Aristide says he was kidnapped and taken by force to the Central African Republic. Congress member Maxine Waters said she received a call from Aristide at 9 a.m., and we're going to get into her exact words in a second. And then this report is backed up by Trans Africa founder and close Aristide family friend Randall Robinson. Also received a call from the Haitian president early this morning. Said Aristide emphatically denied that he resigned. He did not resign. He was abducted by the United States in the commission of a coup, said Robinson. Okay, so here's Maxine Waters. I believe it was a phone call to Democracy Now! And she had spoken with Aristide. Maxine, this is a congresswoman, by the way. Maxine Waters said, he is in the Central Republic of Africa at a place called the Palace of the Renaissance, and he is surrounded by military. It's like a jail, he said. He said that he was kidnapped. He said that he was forced to leave Haiti. He said that the American embassy sent the diplomats to his home where they were led by Mr. Moreno, and I believe that Mr. Moreno is a deputy chief of staff at the embassy in Haiti and other diplomats, and they ordered him to leave. They said, you must go now. They said that Guy Felipe and the U.S. Marines were coming to Port-au-Prince and that he would be killed. Many Haitians would be killed, that they would not stop until they did what they wanted to do. He was there with his wife, Mildred, and his brother-in-law and two security people. They took them. They did stop in Antigua, and then they stopped at a military base. I would imagine that's probably a U.S. military base.
No, then they were bases all over the world, Lee. We just have a couple, just a handful. We're not
we call them lily pads, so we can bounce from one to the next. Yes. Then they were in the air for hours, and then they arrived at this place, and they were met by 5 ministers of government. one thing that was very clear, and he said it over and over, he was kidnapped. The coup was completed by the Americans. They forced him out. They had also disabled his American security force that he had around him for months. To begin with, they wanted them to bring in more people for security, to provide security. They prevented them from doing that. So basically, the U.S. knew they were going to do this. They knew this was coming, and so they stopped his security from beefing up before this all went down. I heard it directly from him. I heard it directly from his wife that they were kidnapped. They were forced to leave. They did not want to leave. Their lives were threatened, and the lives of many Haitians were threatened. He did not resign. He said he was forced out. And the key about they did not resign is, meanwhile, you have like the Bush administration, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, all of them running around saying there's been a coup in Haiti and Aristide has resigned and fled to Africa. And that is a massive difference. I mean, there is a massive difference between what the mainstream media was telling people and what actually happened. And the reason that's a difference is because if there was a coup and he fled and he resigned, then that means case closed on Aristide. Let's put in a new government. Let's put in a new powerful person to run the country. But if he was kidnapped and fucking taken out of the country and did not resign, then he is still the rightful president, whether he's in Africa or not. And so that's the lie that like CNN and our mainstream media were running around with, just believing the fucking State Department so that they could lay the propaganda groundwork to put in different leadership. And go ahead.
This is like how our government and media is any different than like the mob. That's just like, hey, a guy fell down a flight of stairs. I don't know what to tell you. He can't be leader anymore. You know what I mean? Hey,
he tripped and fell onto a military plane, and it ended up in Africa.
Guys get mixed up on planes all the time. I get lost. I got lost on the expressway the other day. Guys get lost. They go to Africa instead of Haiti. They don't know where they're at. I mean, everything get mixed up. The guy wanted a vacation. What can I tell you?
He wanted a vacation, and he happened to sign a paper saying he resigned. I don't know. Listen, some people do that. Some people wanted just some time in the sun, you know?
This is a legitimate business operation. I don't know why we're being hostile. This is a legitimate business. A lot of guys have.
I bet he was tired of the cold winters in Haiti, and he wanted some relief. You know, he just wanted a vacation down in sunny Africa. You know how it is.
You know what I mean? Guys always go to different continents when they want to get away. It's a stressful job. You know what I mean? And the Marines helped him pack. I mean, I think the American government was being gracious, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean? That's all, guys. You know, like.
So then Maxine Waters concludes with what could be done. She said people must call their politicians and demand that he be returned. And those of us who are elected officials, we must not only get to the president, we must demand that he is returned to claim his presidency if that is what he wants. If you can recall what happened in Venezuela, she's talking about 2002 with Mr. Chavez. They tried to force him out. That was another U.S.-backed coup. They tried to force him out, and they had someone step into the presidency, and Chavez had not resigned his presidency, and he got it back. Basically, the people of Venezuela and most of the military, maybe all of the military, the vast majority of the military, said, fuck no, we're not letting you put someone else in place. Chavez is still the leader. And so Chavez just took his presidency back. Because that's the thing, is like you can fly someone to Africa, but you got to get the country to believe that the guy is done being ruler. Or you in the case of, you know, Moise, you got to kill him. So, you know, I mean, the fucking propaganda they were laying to make this okay, and by the way, it worked. You know, Aristide was kept in Africa. He was in exile for, I think they said 7 years. He came back in 2011. But to show you the propaganda, which continues to this day. Here is the Wikipedia version of just a couple sentences of the 2004 coup. He was ousted in a 2004 coup d'etat after right-wing ex-army paramilitaries invaded the country from across the Dominican border. So in that first sentence, not the United States. Then it says, Aristide and many others have alleged that the U.S. had a role in orchestrating the coup against him. Have alleged that the U.S. had a role. These were fucking U.S. planes kidnapping the guy and dropping him in Africa. It's like he didn't allege it. It's fucking obvious.
Well, just because some of the United States Marine Corps that is only going to go when ordered happen to be involved in this. I don't know how you could say it's the American government, Lee. I mean, now we're splitting hairs. You know what I mean? Like, it's American planes. It's American service members who, again, are just acting under orders. If you tell a Marine, tell that guy he can't fly back to Haiti, the Marine's going to go, you can't fly back to Haiti. That's how that works. And that Marine got an order from a commanding officer who the chain of command in the military goes up to the president. So that's how it goes. This is like,
and this is the other thing is this isn't like the 1800s. This is fucking or early 1900s. This is fucking 2004. We just grab the guy, put him on a plane, and say, "Oh, he resigned, and he's in Africa." It was crazy. He just left. He just fucking ran for it. Crazy.
Seeing how these assholes operate. If I ever became president, I would do this kind of shit, but against them. I would literally just be like, "Oh, the CIA, the head of the CIA said he wanted to shut the organization down. He got on a plane and he flew to Africa. And he said he's shutting it down. So we're shutting it. That's what he wanted. We're shutting it down, I guess. I don't know what happened."
Yeah, Michael Bloomberg just said he'd had enough, and he flew to Siberia, and he said all of his money's up for grabs. Yeah, it's
weird. Jeff Bezos did the same thing. Elon Musk. They all just said they gave up their money, and they all signed. We have a signed document. They confessed and said they're sorry, and they signed it. So that's what's going to happen. I don't know.
It was in a weird twist. It was actually the Native Americans that got him to sign the document to them. So yeah.
Yeah, I know. And it's just weird. And they and all the CEOs of all these oil companies said they're going to stop drilling. They all said this. And then they willfully said, we all want to go to Gitmo and get waterboarded. So don't keep the messenger. That's what they told me. So that's where they're going. That's where they said. They
wanted a wet and wild vacation, they said. So
yeah, they wanted
waterboarding.
They said like a water park in Guantanamo. So who am I to say no? I mean, they run their own companies. It's a free country. That's how I would be like, I'm not playing fair with these assholes. I'm going to do their bullshit, but only against those in power.
Yeah. That's what and then have them pay you interest for getting kicked out of the country. Listen, you owe me for leaving.
I know you voluntarily got on a plane and flew to Siberia, but those planes have gas and there's insurance and the pilots have overtime. So you're going to have to pay that. And
the gas was $1,000 and it's been a week. So plus interest, that's $27 billion. That's most of what you got. Yeah.
It needs to be paid up front. And then it's $27 billion for the rest for that. So you guys signed the document. I don't know what to tell you,
but yeah. And so part of the reason that the U.S. would even be willing to do something so brash is because they view it like they own these countries. They really do. They view it like, yeah, Haiti's a little surly, but we still own it. And they
own the media. This is the thing this is the thing the ruling elites really realized in the 70s. With the last sort of era of like free media, right? They said, we just got to own the media and let's just own everything. And when we own everything, then we can control the message. And that's what's happened. Yeah. Since the 80s, the media got corporate. So, I mean, and we've talked about this before, even Hollywood. So there's not even movies being made like 3 Days of the Condor, or All the President's Men, or anything like that. Those are all movies made in the 70s, or The Deer Hunter.
Yeah. And there's other countries like this as well. Britain is, really owned by, their media is owned by like 4 fucking oligarchs that control. And even Hugh Grant said this on an interview recently, that they control who gets to be prime minister, and they proved it with Corbyn. He was popular, so they said he was an anti-Semite, and they published article after article after article for a fucking year and a half, and it crushed him.
Same thing in Australia. I mean, Rupert Murdoch owns all their media, so they get this idiot Scott Morrison down there. So that's what that's. They all do that. They all realize the ruling elite said, let's just control the media, and we control the message, and they control the show, the entertainment media. They control all of this. So there's no movie being made about this, what happened to Aristotle in 2004, showing how corrupt our government. There's no documentary coming out that's going to get Oscar nominations and be really big on Netflix. That's never going to happen. There might be a documentary out there, but it's going to be buried, and maybe you can see it on or on YouTube before they figure out how to pull it down.
Yeah, they'll do it like the HBO movie of Fred Hampton, which I have a lot of qualms with, but the fact that they even made that movie, it's like, well, we'll wait until, 40, 50 years after we've assassinated him or something. And then we'll let a movie slip through that's kind of positive.
Yeah. And we'll just be like, yay, diversity. And then we won't make another movie like that again. And nor will we let a guy like that actually exist today. So, it's that's what they've done. They're like, this is how they can get away with it. This is how they brazenly do this. Not in the 1920s, in 2004. Just basically today, the modern era. They just put people on planes and fly them away and go, oh, this guy, like, look what they fucking did with Juan Guaido. I mean, literally, we all had to swallow that. Juan Guaido just stands up and goes, I'm the new president.
Yeah. It actually has a lot of similarity. They just didn't kidnap Maduro. Similar with Aristide, they just announced, oh, this other guy, he's the president. So, Venezuela, they just announced that. And then they gave over like the fucking Venezuelan embassy and shit. Like, I was there during that. And it's like, no, literally nothing has changed in Venezuela. You've just announced somebody who never received a vote for president. Not a single vote. He couldn't even vote for himself for president. Not a single vote for, you just announced he was president. It's fucking bizarre.
That ridiculous shit at the State of the Union speech where, and again, now they're sophisticated enough. They know how to use social media. So what was going around viral on social media was Nancy Pelosi ripping up. And that was the big, that's for fighting. But the media didn't show where Nancy stood with Trump and everybody, Republican and Democrat alike, clapped for Juan Guaido. Yep. No, the media didn't go, wow, this is bullshit. That guy's a CIA puppet. Everyone went along with it. And the dummies on social media were like,
that was the single moment that Nancy Pelosi stood and applauded with Donald Trump was for a coup they were trying to perpetrate against a socialist state because they fucking can't stand that the oil's been nationalized there. And it's like, that's really what you all have joined together in agreement on is like fucking pathetic. You are sociopath sacks of shit. And that's your moment of cheering and hugging. And it's like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. And that's like, they can't stand the fact that like Chavez initially was like brought people out of poverty, brought indigenous people out of poverty in Venezuela.
Dude, we should do a whole separate episode on it, but he decreased extreme poverty by 70% in a matter of years, which the U.S. has never done anything like that. And he decreased poverty in general, not just extreme poverty, but poverty by 50% in a matter of years. And there's a huge, which even many independent journalists don't talk about this, there's a huge racial issue in this. I'm sorry that racism plays a role in these things, but Chavez was the first indigenous, leader since colonialism to take over, to win and, take over in Venezuela. And if you look at like the Guaido camp, and so Maduro also is kind of darker skinned. And if you look at now Guaido is darker skinned, which is why they chose him. They were like, oh, he looks like he's not a white guy running Venezuela. But if you look at the Guaido camp, like there's photos of his everybody around him, all of his people, his diplomats, everything. If you look at it's all lighter skinned people versus the more, not entirely, but more indigenous people. So there is a massive racial aspect. The former oligarchs of Venezuela were largely lighter skinned, connected more to the former colonialism. And it's like that never gets discussed.
And that's true of a lot of the Central and South American countries is, again, there's a handful of ruling elite oligarchs that all, their family line goes back to Europe and they've squashed the indigenous people. I mean, Brazil's like that. I mean, there's so many of them are like that. And
why do you think the Nazis liked Argentina?
Yeah, exactly. They didn't just go there like, oh, hey, the weather's nice. They had a safe haven there. Yeah, man. This country's so stupid, but not stupid, evil, smart and evil. Should we move on to the next?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Now this is an extensive one, so I'm sure there's a lot I'm gonna breeze over. And so, I went to some different websites, and one of them, that basically Haiti's leader assassination weekends decades old Clinton family conspiracy theory. And they, some of the Clinton conspiracy.
They said the assassination of Moise weakened it?
Brought it up, like reawakened.
Oh, reawakened.
Reawakened. Yeah. So, and, interim Prime Minister Claude Joseph, who announced Moise's assassination, has declared a nationwide state of siege. Police said that 4 mercenaries behind the assassination had been killed and 2 others captured following a gun battle. No further details, right? In a widely circulating, now this gets a little crazy conspiracy, so I don't know. This is a grain of salt one, but apparently taken during the attack, a person speaking English can be heard claiming it is an operation by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. That part's been confirmed, but the question is just whether they were saying that to get in the door. So they did claim to be DEA, but it's quite possible they just said that to get in the door. Yeah. So, but let's go into, because there is a lot of suspicious Clinton Foundation activity in Haiti, especially since the big hurricane, right? So there's one article that we have here.
Is that 2010?
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
The 2010 one. So let me share. This is an article from The Nation.
And so folks understand, like, that's how gutted Haiti is that a hurricane in 2010 they haven't recovered from.
No,
because they're just torn apart and exploited. And yeah.
But that's part of it too. One of the reasons they haven't been rebuilt is because the Clinton Foundation is basically siphoned off money. This is from The Nation. The shelters that Clinton built, structurally unsafe and laced with formaldehyde, the hurricane-proof classroom trailers installed by the Clinton Foundation in Haiti, came from the same company being sued for sickening Hurricane Katrina victims.
Laced with formaldehyde. I could see like the Clinton Foundation people being like, well, we'll just embalm the Haitians now and then we don't have to deal with them.
Yeah. The project was announced in January 2010 by Clinton and his foundation first contribution to the Interim Haiti Recovery Commission, which the former president co-chairs. The foundation described the project as hurricane-proof emergency shelters that can also serve as schools to ensure the safety of vulnerable populations in high-risk areas during the hurricane season. However, The Nation reporters visited the hurricane-proof shelters in June. This is June of 2010 or 2011, I think. 6 to 8 months after they'd been installed. We found them to consist of 20 imported prefab trailers beset by a host of problems, from mold to sweltering heat to shoddy construction. Most disturbing, they were manufactured by the same company, Clayton Homes, that is being sued in the United States for providing the FEMA with formaldehyde-laced trailers.
And something else people should understand is, like, it'd be one thing if someone tried to help Haiti, they couldn't get enough money, so they ended up making shoddy shelters. I mean, it still wouldn't be good, but this is a foundation that goes around the world raising billions of dollars, whatever, hundreds of millions. So they have loads of money. It's not like they couldn't make legit shelters if they wanted to.
Right. And that's the whole scam of, one of the many scams of the Clinton Foundation is they get people to donate and then they say, oh, we're going to do all this great work. And then they skim all this money off the top and build bullshit. It's like, this is a similar thing. I'm finding out they're building a lot of tiny homes in Los Angeles for the homeless, which on paper sounds like a great idea. LA's got an insane homeless problem. They're building these tiny homes, which are literally like, 6 by 6 foot or 6 by 10 foot little homes.
Yeah, it's like a room, but it's a big difference for someone who's truly homeless.
Yes, it's a great, like, getting people on. It's not a cot, it's not a shelter, it's a home. There's a shower, there's people there to help them. But we're finding out the city is paying somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 100 grand per unit. Come on, man.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Dude, it's like they can I covered it recently. They can 3D print those things for $10,000.
Easy. I mean, you could build one, go get a couple guys and go to Home Depot and build one for 15, 20 grand. I mean, come on.
No, the ones in Vegas, which they destroyed. I did a video on this too. The Food Not Bombs in Vegas was building tiny homes for people, and they were building it on the average. It was costing them something like $600 per unit. $600, not thousands. $600, and the homeless were living in them and really loving it. And the fucking city came by with bulldozers and just fucking destroyed it.
What a bunch of sacks of shit in that godforsaken hellhole. Anyway, so that's part of the. This is what the Clintons do, right? The Clayton Homes is owned by Berkshire Hathaway. Oh, that's Warren Buffett's company. What do I say on my show, Political Vigilante? Follow the money, connect the dots, find the truth.
Hold on. Warren Buffett's a good guy. I read it in like the Atlantic and the New York Times. And he yes, he has a lot of money, but he just did it by investing in good things like Coca-Cola.
Oh, right. Billionaires don't spend tens of $millions on marketing campaigns to make them seem lovable like Bill Gates.
No.
But this is the weird thing. And again, these are just wacky coincidences. So Berkshire Hathaway, owned by Clayton Homes, Warren Buffett, is one of the notable private sector members of the Clinton Global Initiative, according to the initiative's website. Members are typically required to pay $20,000 a year to the charity, but the foundationals will not disclose, blah, blah, blah. Buffett was also a prominent Hillary Clinton supporter during the 2008 presidential race, and he co-hosted a fundraiser that brought in at least $1 million for her campaign. You know, when she lost and then strong-armed Obama to make her Secretary of State, and then got to run again in 2016 and still lost again because she's fucking horrible. Anyway, and they talk about these classrooms are awful. This goes on, but then there's this. And this is in The Guardian, and this is from 2019. Haiti and the failed promise of U.S. aid. After earthquake struck in 2010, the U.S. pledged to help rebuild the Caribbean country. A decade later, nothing better symbolizes the failure of these efforts than the story of a new port that was promised but never built. So again, the Hillary and Bill Clinton Foundation, they traveled to the Caribbean as newlyweds in 1975, and they were enchanted. That's their bullshit story. The Clintons became increasingly involved in Haiti, working to reshape the country in profound ways. A U.S. president in the 90s, Bill lobbied for sweeping changes to Haiti's agriculture sector, and that significantly increased the country's dependence on American food crops. So the Clintons have been sticking it for a long time.
Could you imagine being like, wow, this poor country is really trying to dig themselves out. Let's make them reliant on fucking American bullshit crops so that they have no choice but to be basically, you know, enslaved to us in a different way, you know, than before, but still enslaved.
And we should note, based on your segment, that while the Clintons are sticking it to them in the 90s, they're still paying interest on that fucking slave deal from 120 years ago or whatever at that point, right? Or they just paid that off 5 years ago.
Yeah, they paid it off in 1947, I think.
Oh, okay, good. So they had a couple decades of not.
They got a few decades reprieve.
And then here comes Billy Boy and Hillary just jamming it right up there. In 1994, 3 years after a military coup in Haiti, Bill ordered a U.S. invasion that overthrew the junta and restored the country's democratically elected. Now, granted, this is The Guardian, so it is infused with corporate bullshit. 15 years later, Bill was appointed United Nations special.
Sometimes it depends on what year of The Guardian it was. The Guardian was kind of captured like 5 years ago or something.
Yeah, this is 2019. So they've now been indoctrinated. By 2010, the Clintons were two of Haiti's largest benefactors. Their personal philanthropic fund, the Clinton Foundation, had 34 projects in the country and focused on things like creating jobs. 34 projects and billions of dollars just in your foundation, and Haiti is still a train wreck.
Right.
Clintons became two of their leading proponents of particular approach to improving Haiti's fortunes, one that relies on making the country an attractive place for multinational companies to do business. That Haitians, right? You know, that's right up there with deregulation and bipartisan deal. Like those words all just sound like a huge.
That's the vulture shit. Greg Palast covered it great in the book Vulture's Picnic. It wasn't about Haiti, but it was about, I think, Puerto Rico and some other countries. But they just encircle, they'll buy up, they circle like vultures, and they'll buy up debt of poor countries and then fucking rake them over the coals to, you know, they'll be like, yeah, this $5 million debt we bought is now worth 20 million because of interest. So pay us 20 million. So these countries end up paying most of their resources to like a vulture capitalist fund. Like fucking, it's insane.
Well, it's weird that you would mention that, because the Clintons have done this by combining foreign aid with diplomacy, attracting foreign financing to build factories, roads, and other infrastructure that, in many cases, Haitian taxpayers must repay.
You know, and another, honestly, if people read one book to figure out some of this shit, it's Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And this is like, they're basically, it sounds like the Clinton Foundation is basically doing what the IMF and the World Bank have done for years, which is you offer to build these things in these countries, but they end up owing you so much money that they're under your thumb. You can get them to do what you want. They owe you interest for years. You never let them out. Like that's what this is.
Yeah. This is another thing. They got $4.4 billion from Congress, and international UN and U.S. aid.
But I'd love to see the details though about what that was. Well, the U.S. Congress never just gives aid without there being crazy strings attached.
Listen to this. At every stage of Haiti's reconstruction, fundraising, oversight, and allocation, a Clinton was now involved. No greater embodiment of the neoliberal approach to aid in Haiti than the U.S. largest post-earthquake project, 300 million, 600-acre industrial park called Caracol on the country's northern coast. To make the park more attractive, the U.S. also agreed to finance a power plant and a new port through which firms operating at Caracol could ship in materials such as cotton and ship out finished products, including t-shirts and jeans. So slave labor. This is great. They've set up a cheap labor outfit.
Right. This is the part of it that I remember. And they kept the wages at like, it was like, you know, some tiny amount of money.
Of course. And they're telling everybody, oh, donate to the Clinton Foundation because we're helping jobs and bring people out of poverty in Haiti, which they're not. They are not. So Haiti has failed.
Donate to the Clinton Foundation. We have slave labor camps around the globe. We're helping people. We're helping people with wonderful slave labor careers. You thought it was just a gig job, but you can be a slave laborer your whole life.
And you get to pay taxes on money we've taken and used and stolen from your country. It's amazing how we're sticking it to you every way, every possible way we can. The economist Paul Collier said that Haiti has failed. And by building critical assets such as ports, they argue the U.S. and its allies could help Haiti attract private foreign investment and create stable jobs and needed to prosper. Bullshit. 10 years later,
but here's the thing. Let me just say, even if that were true, the phrasing of attract foreign investment sounds very positive to our like social engineering brains, but attract foreign investment is a bad fucking thing. I mean, yes, it can prop up some people. Some people will get some money from it, but we live in a fucking capitalist system that is burning the world to the ground and destroying most people's lives, and yet they have these terminologies, these euphemisms that make it sound like a good thing. Attract foreign investment. Hey, foreigners will want to buy up your country and your labor, which is your life, right? That's your time of your life. So foreign countries, rich people in other countries will want to buy up the resources and your life, and we're helping attract to that.
It's just modern colonialism. That's all it is. It's just fancy polish. We just put a polish on the colonialism of centuries ago that just came in and stole everything. Now we're just going to say, you get to work in this corporate park. Well, the industrial park is widely considered to have failed to deliver the economic transformation the Clintons promised, but less attention has been paid to the fate of the port. Last year, after sinking tens of millions of dollars into the port project, the U.S. quietly abandoned it. The port is now one of the final failures in an American post-earthquake plan for Haiti that has been characterized by disappointment throughout. But I just want to, another quick article I found.
Disappoint. That's the Guardian again, like euphemizing this fucking horror show. A disappointment. It's kind of like the Iraq War was a disappointment. It just didn't go quite right. No, they're doing exactly what they intended to do. They're fucking, yes, they would have liked to found WMD in Iraq, but they destroyed Iraq, which was what they intended. They are exploiting Haiti. The Clinton Foundation's getting millions upon millions of dollars. They're getting what they want. It's not a disappointment. This is what they're doing. This is how it works.
Yeah, and the Guardian uses all those cute flowery words. They'll point, there's enough kind of tough words in there for the Guardian to go, hey man, we went at them. We're fair. We're journalists. No, you're not, but there's enough candy ass language in there to make excuses for the horrific shit that they've done. But
right, I mean, that's how pathetic our media is now, and I'm factoring in British media as well. That just printing that report, that softened version is them doing an impressive job for mainstream media.
Oh yeah, that's really coming in, guns a-blazing. That's their version of, man, that was tough journalism. No, it wasn't.
Rather than the reality, which would be to say the Clinton, whatever it's called, foundation is basically a money laundering scheme. People donate millions of dollars. They spend a tiny percentage of it on actual projects. Most of it goes into their bank accounts or to pay people. And then what does like Warren Buffett get out of donating to it? Well, he gets his connections to the Clintons and to anyone associated with the Clintons, like the Obamas, when Clinton was in that administration. And so he's basically paying for the influence over these lawmakers. And it's a money power laundering scheme.
Of course. And there's even, and I'm not even going to go into this, but there's even, and this might get a little more conspiratorial because I haven't done enough research on this, but I've heard in my circle of Epstein researchers that, part of the Clinton Foundation too was also, there's some evidence of snatching kids up in Haiti. It's a poor country. So I'm not even going to go down that road yet. That's something I'll do separately on my show, but.
Well, yeah. And, different people define that differently. So there's literally like kidnapping kids. And then there's basically sex trafficking, which is telling a 14-year-old in Haiti, hey, you'll get paid more than you ever could imagine, which, maybe it's $10 an hour is more than this girl could ever imagine. And you can send a bunch home to your family and they're starving to death. And if you, agree to this deal and we'll, take you on a plane and we'll fly you around the world. And then they get halfway around the world and realize that sex is involved and, and they're getting paid what you and I might consider pennies, $10 or something, but an hour. But for them, it's more money than they've ever seen. And it's like, that is another version of snatching kids. Sure, it's not a guy in a van grabbing them and chloroforming them, but it's a fucking version of raping and pillaging and stealing people.
And a poor third world country. You snatch up a suburban white kid, there's going to be everyone's going to ask, where the hell are they? You snatch up a poor kid from Haiti or whatever. That's
right. What kind of political power could a family in Haiti being like, where's our teenage girl gone? What chance do they get of getting any attention?
Any attention at all? And if they really start making noise, well, then they're going to hang themselves with a paper T-shirt like the Clintons like to have people do. But I want to go back to the food thing because I just talked about it briefly in that one article, but this is a full article about how American tax dollars are keeping Arkansas rice growers fat on the farm and starving millions of Haitians. Okay. So This is from 2013. In the wake of Haiti's devastating 7.0 magnitude. Former U.S. President Bill Clinton issued an unusual and now infamous apology, calling his subsidies to American rice farmers in the 90s a mistake because it undercut rice production in Haiti. Clinton said he had struck a devil's bargain that ultimately resulted in greater poverty and food insecurity in Haiti. This is one of the classic Clinton tactics. They do something completely awful, conniving. They know exactly what they're doing. And then later they apologize to show, hey, they're human and they make mistakes. Like Clinton's very calculated, the 94 crime bill. Oh boy, we didn't think that one through speech that he gave or whatever.
We were just trying to help the people, not be, not have their lives destroyed by the guy smoking weed on the corner.
Yeah, and they'll say stuff like what we know now. It's like I heard Hillary Clinton talk about Harvey Weinstein. We just didn't know. Oh, right. The woman that was a senator, first lady, secretary of state, her and her husband, two of the most politically shrewd people in the world, had no idea this guy that gave over $2.3 million to big Democrats, including Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, they had no idea because you don't investigate people like that when you're goddamn president or secretary of state.
Well, and I think I have this right that she knew Ronan Farrow, who revealed it about Harvey Weinstein, and because he had worked with her on something when he was a kid, teenager, because he was like a fucking Rhodes Scholar and everything. And so I don't know that it was her. I think it was someone higher up in her office contacted him and basically told him not to run the piece and that he had it all wrong. So they were like putting forward an effort to crush the revelations about Harvey Weinstein.
Of course. Why do you think here we are? There's very little coverage. I mean, all these stories, even the stories that come out about once a month, once every 3 weeks, there's some Ghislaine Maxwell story. Never, ever in any of these mainstream stories is there that photo that's hard to find now of her at Chelsea Clinton's wedding in 2011. It's hard to find that. There's no.
Well, Graham, I just had a video taken down in a strike against my account for cyberbullying. As I mentioned last week, Bloomberg and Epstein, because I talked about the connections between the two of them.
It is mean what you're doing, Lee. We need to stop it. These billionaires have it tough enough, especially when they're pals with sex trafficking pedophiles. You need to stop being so mean. Yeah, you got to strike.
Yeah, and I know honestly, it's a personal flaw of mine.
Lee Camp, bully. So yeah, there's this. Despite Clinton's dramatic confession as role in the United Nations Special Envoy for Haiti, little has changed in the last 3 years for the country's farmers. If anything, they appear worse off. Before Hurricane Sandy hit the eastern seaboard, its rain and flooding caused
Hurricane Handy sounds pretty nice.
Who wants a handy hurricane? The flooding.
I got one of those in college.
It just sounds like it might hurt. The rain and flooding caused $234 million in agricultural losses in Haiti. For a brief moment, coverage of the disaster in the American media shone a light on the miserable conditions that the country farmers were faced with, a lack of infrastructure, capital, and markets that could help their families and country prosper. Meanwhile, for the last year, a piece of U.S. legislation that could have arguably changed the playing field for Haiti's farmers has been stalled. In Washington, D.C., a new $500 billion 5-year farm bill that might have cut subsidies to American rice farmers was never passed. And of course, this is under the Obama administration. It's just
it's acting like Haiti is ours. Like
it's our country.
I mean,
we get to determine. We get to determine Haiti's fate. Why? Explain to me how the United States government gets to dictate what Haitian rice farmers make. How is that? We're all, the free market. Well, then let the rice farmers make whatever, sell their rice. And
Graham, you don't sound like you're factoring in the color of our skin. Okay.
Right. That's right.
So I think you forgot for a moment.
Right. We're the master race. That's why we just run around and commit evil horrors. So yeah, that's just more evidence of how awful the Clinton Foundation. And I know this. we could do another full hour or 2 hours on all even more details of the Clinton Foundation, just specifically to Haiti. Like there's way more. Like this is a huge, like there's just, they gave resort money. They said, we're going to build homes. They built some hotel it's just on and on with that.
You know, one of my favorite things that I covered years ago, but it connects the Clintons, Biden, and Trump all together in a nice little bow tie, is the Clintons had 4 shell companies in a building in Delaware that also housed some of Trump's shell companies. These are basically like inside the U.S. tax havens. And of course, Delaware is Biden's state. And Biden has helped them maintain all of their fucking shady money games his entire career. And it's basically inside the U.S. tax haven. So you can claim, you know, I'm not, our companies aren't outside the U.S. They're in Delaware. And literally it's like a building that is like 1 story or 2 stories and it holds 40,000 businesses apparently. It's that type of thing. So the 4 of Clinton's shell companies were in the same building as Trump's shell companies, which shows you these guys they're cut from the same cloth. Like these are the same motherfuckers, you know?
They were all friends.
Yeah.
The goddamn Clintons and Trumps were all friends. Bill Clinton encouraged Donald Trump to run for president. He said, you should run as a Republican. Like this is this whole like.
And then they Pied Pipered him.
They Pied Pipered him because they knew we know we can beat him. And then when they lost, because she ran a horrible campaign, it was Putin, Jill Stein, and Bernie.
It was Assange's fault, which piece of shit John Cusack is, as of yesterday, is still tweeting. So that
John Cusack went to my high school.
That Assange got Trump elected.
Goddamn, John Cusack is a fucking idiot,
dude. God. And people hold him up as like some kind of left celebrity, and it's like, what kind of piece of shit? Like, this is the type of ignorant thing you would have seen on Twitter from some celebrity like fucking 9 years ago when Assange was, or I guess if it's about Trump, 4 years ago when Trump was elected. But to still be tweeting that shit, it's like you've got something really wrong, some kind of brain parasite that really won't let you fucking move on and educate yourself.
He doesn't want to. He's just a spoiled little Hollywood idiot. He started working in movies in high school. Yeah. And he's a spoiled jackass. And so is Jeremy Piven. They both went to my high school. They're both spoiled little assholes. And, you know, who gives a shit what
the fuck was this high school? Is it in LA?
It was Evanston Township High School in Chicago.
Chicago.
Yep. So it's, we've produced some serious bags of shit. But go Wildcats. Yeah. John Cusack is an idiot who doesn't want to educate himself because he just lives in his Hollywood bubble and go on Twitter and still backing Hillary Clinton. Again, he doesn't want to hear any of the awful shit the Clintons have done. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear that these neoliberal fuckheads. They don't want to hear anything. And they're just as crazy and delusional as the Trumpers who say Trump never lied. They're just as crazy, and they should be viewed as just as crazy and just as dangerous and just as stupid. And they should be given no safe haven for any way, shape, or form because they're just as dangerous. So fuck them. They're the worst.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's our government secrets on how America and the Clintons have ruined Haiti.
Yeah, we didn't really get into all of it, but we tried to give you a little slice of the pie.
A little slice of the pie, indeed. Well, Lee Camp, where can people watch and enjoy and revel in all of your Lee Campness?
That would be leecamp.com. There's a new redacted tonight out about how the United States shares a lot in common with totalitarian states. It's actually really one and the same in many ways. That's
I find that hard to believe after doing 48 episodes of the show.
You can learn all the details at leecamp.com. And the new site I've just launched is called radindiemedia.com, RADINDIE media.com. And it's it basically, people always ask us, what are our sources? Where are we getting our information? What do we read on a daily basis? It's doing its best to have all of that for people. So, and it just directs people directly to those sources. So it's not like Huffington Post that steals clicks away from other outlets. It all funnels everybody to those outlets. So if you want to learn what's going on from the independent media every day, radindymedia.com.
Nice. Of course, my show, Political Vigilante, and everything I do, Anything Can Happen game show. It's all at my YouTube show and Rockfin. Go to rockfin.com/Graham Elwood. And of course, all my tour dates, Ron Placone and I are going on the road starting September 11th. We put new tour dates are up at grahamelwood.com. And there will be probably a couple of live government secrets available too.
Yes, it's happening.
Gaga, gaga, gaga. So we'll actually have a phone call rather than just talk about it on this show, and we'll iron that out and hopefully have a tour date to announce soon. So go to grahamelwood.com. So, all right, dude.
Yeah, thanks, man. Good show.
Thank you, brother. We'll talk soon.
Later.
Bye. Hey, everybody, it's Graham Elwood. We are going on the road, Ron Placone and I, in September and October. Check grahamelwood.com for tour dates, probably coming to a city near you. A lot of these shows have sold out in the past. We haven't been on the road in a year and a half because of the pandemic. Come out and join us. The post-pandemic comedy tour. Go to grahamelwood.com for tickets. New cities being announced every day. Join us. And support what we do at patreon.com/Graham Elwood and rockfin.com/Graham Elwood. Blockchain cryptocurrency platform. Thank you. You're making Gotham great again. Boom.